Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Dolores Blue Ribbon at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners. I hear you back there, chat room, and thank everyone for tuning in this evening. If you hear a kitty cat, that's my new adopted kitten, and he's unhappy because he's isolated. Anyways, but he's right here, so he'll settle down in a minute. But we are 100% listener supported, so if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button, and we appreciate your support, and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And, of course, I will be at the Super Soldier Summit 3 coming up late May 30th, 31st, and June 1st in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can purchase tickets at www.supersoldiersummit.com. And we have an excellent lineup of speakers, so get your tickets and get over there. You know, I would recommend that people look into the Cobra technology. This is patented technology that people need to be aware of. This is for real. It's not a game, and you need to take it seriously. And you are listening to Studio A. I hear you laughing back there. And I do wish to thank everyone for the birthday wishes at Revolution Radio, including Douglas, Noreen, and the crew, and many others. Thank you all very, very much. We have some wonderful hosts here at Revolution Radio, which is it's very unique to the station itself. And in celebration of my birthday, April 20th, which is indeed tomorrow, and of course, Happy Easter to those who celebrate, I decided to have a chill conversation this evening with someone I have a great deal of respect for. And Jim Nichols will be my special guest for 1 hour this evening. We have quite a few topics of discussion to draw on from tonight, and Jim has been on my show many times before and is always a fascinating wellspring of insight and knowledge and what I consider to be a true scholar. His bio is, since 1980, noted artist and investigator, lecturer Jim Nichols has produced an extraordinary body of UFO illustrations that has been published internationally in magazines, articles, books, and the internet. His art was routinely featured on the History Channel's UFO Hunters, as well in his art book, Case Files Revealed. He shares the untold stories behind 40 of his most dramatic UFO illustrations based on actual accounts. His book is available through his website at www.jimnicholsufo.net. Jim is also winner of 2 EBE-Awards at 2010's International UFO Conference in Laughlin, Nevada, for his video documentary about Nazi saucers entitled The Aldebaran Mystery, which is also available now as a DVD from UFOTV Productions, I believe. In addition, 13 of Jim's UFO-related video essays are now presented by UFO on YouTube, which can be accessed from his website. And his, I believe that's, we'll double-check that. And please welcome Jim to the show this evening. Jim, how are you?
Hi, Solaris. How are you? Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I heard you chuckling back there.
Yeah, it's like everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon to wish you a happy birthday, and it's like I'm very honored that you would have me on for your birthday show.
Oh, well, thank you, and I'm honored to have you as a guest, and I consider you a friend as well, so thank you very much for joining me.
Very good.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you on. You're a wellspring of data and information, and you always have some intriguing information. And did I get everything right with your YouTube videos?
Yeah,
I know you were
that's fine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure. Okay. I know you were reworking some of those and editing and things like that, so those are all up and running. Okay, great. Excellent. All right. Well, so what's on your mind tonight?
Well, that's not fair. What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, everything and nothing.
Birthday girl, what's this is Happy Easter, by the way, also.
Yes, it is.
And we had talked about maybe broaching some Easter-oriented subjects tonight.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a good thing.
So I'll let you take off.
Okay, well, and so far as
go with this.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thing, and obviously, I'm open to a lot of different types of. I don't want to call it a belief system, but let's go with the thread and the fabric and see what happens here. I mean, so far as the Christ itself, the Christ consciousness, the representation of Christ, and there are a lot of people who associate with Christ as just a band of energy and a state of consciousness opposed to a real physical being. And so what is your impression of the Christ, of the Jesus that walked the timeline on Earth?
Well, let me put a little disclaimer out here. I don't claim to be a theological expert in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. But I was raised a good little Methodist boy back in Ohio, and we had the middle class Protestant ethic back there, and pretty much the basic Jesus story, and that. And I just pretty much accepted it as that. But it isn't until much later I got a bit more mature, and I've seen the world from a different point of view, considering all the research I've been doing over the years, and I've come to question, well, maybe is the Jesus story that we've been told, by the church, is that the real story, or is that an embellishment of the story of a true historical figure that has been slightly distorted to accommodate the political aspirations of the Vatican in Rome? Mm-hmm. If you study the history of the Vatican and study the history of Rome and all this stuff, it's like, is this a power politics game that's masked as religion, or just will the real Jesus please stand up? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Exactly.
And I've looked into this from several different points of view, and I have my own favorite theories about who he is, but I must say these are just my theories, and I don't want to step on anybody's faith here, because it's like that's kind of a touchy topic. Mm-hmm. But I think that I think there's more to this story than we've ever been told.
I so agree. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of symbolism also associated with a lot of the the information.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which leads me to believe that it was more based on ritual consciousness than on a physical representation or manifestation. Now, I also, it's a real sensitive subject, obviously, but I look at things in terms of energy, and I look at the Master Christ consciousness in terms of energy also. It's a configuration of energy, just like the Black Madonna, who, of course, they never talk about in the churches, and which is actually a connection to ancient mystery schools, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that I find the biggest problem is that there's really no independent record, historical record, that gives an adequate profile of a historical Jesus. And it seems to be, so what we rely on are the four Gospels. Mm-hmm. that Christianity holds sacred. And, I was looking at that, and what's interesting is that we know that Augustus Caesar was a real historical character. And we know that Pontius Pilate was a real historical character. And we know that that at that particular time in Mediterranean history, there was great turmoil in Judea, in Galilee, and a tremendous. It was like a powder keg. There was tremendous anti-Roman sentiment there, and it was. So all these, what I really like is all the political intrigue of that particular era. And these things we know are historical fact.
Right.
Historical fact. That the Jesus in the Bible lived to be about 33 years old, and before his crucifixion, he prophesied the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. And that was a prophecy that came true about 33 years after his crucifixion. There was the Jewish Roman wars broke out, and ultimately Jerusalem was destroyed, and ultimately the Roman emperor completely outlawed the state of Israel and renamed it Palestine. So it's very interesting that the political intrigues haven't stopped. I mean, the year I was born, 1948, the whole thing reversed, and Palestine was renamed Israel. Mm-hmm. And all the Jewish refugees from Europe flooded into Palestine, and it was renamed Israel. So it's like this epic has been going on for 2,000 years. Right. So it seems to me it's like there are some within the context of the Bible story, there are some really, really powerful and intense political issues that were going on then and are still going on today. Mm-hmm. And and if a character like Jesus somehow got involved in all this at that time, yeah, you can see this would have certainly evolved into a really powerful, dramatic situation over there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, even his presence alone, I mean, the Master Christ, in my opinion, was a mystical scientist, just like beings like myself and many others who walk the earth. And honestly, when you look at the Christ consciousness, there's a lot of, the return of the Christ is really the return of the Christ consciousness descending into each person, which is linked to the higher self, over self. If you look at the mystery school teachings, it is associated with alchemical transfiguration, even his death, the transfiguration of the atomic cellular atom. I mean, really, we're talking about immortality, ascension, light body, Merkaba. These are things that are taught in the mystery schools. A lot of, even I am in the craft, and people would accuse me of being something demonic and evil, when in fact it's completely opposite. So, and of course, that's generated by churches. That's generated by these structures that are trying to control and completely manipulate the mystical identification of consciousness in motion. So, I mean, that's the representation I see, but I do see the symbolism, and I think you are correct so far as a lot of the way it's represented, and it's all about control and manipulation. And you're going back, 2,000 years? But try channeling back, try going back, beyond that. I mean, let's go back before the world was formed, I mean, you're going to look at one little doctrine of data, but you have to go back a lot further than that, because we've had a lot of civilizations here before that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that that I found interesting, I got a copy of Mel Gibson's The Passion on DVD, and the first time I saw that, I was just so traumatized by the brutality of that film that I didn't get it. I really didn't get it. I really enjoyed the authenticity that he brought to the trial, and that kind of aspect. But I went back and watched it all over again, and this time I think I caught it. I got what Mel was trying to say, I think. And there's a key scene when Jesus is being privately interviewed by Governor Pontius Pilate. And Jesus kind of looks at Pilate, and he explains to him essentially what he's saying is that I am not of this world. And all I would have to do is make the right command, and the heavenly host or the extraterrestrials or whoever would step in and not allow you to harm me. He says, but I'm going to forgo that. So essentially what he was saying is that for the next 12 hours, I'm going to let you do your worst to me to prove a point. And if, as the film progresses, they do just that. But I think the point that Gibson was trying to make was that Jesus was an immortal. He was just what he said he was. I am not of this world. And so you can abuse me, you can beat me, you can crucify me, you can kill me. But in 3 days' time, my body will reconstitute itself, and you will have accomplished nothing. And I will have proven my point. And if you watch the way the film goes, you go through this horrific crucifixion, and then the very last scene, you see him fully reconstituted. And it's like, okay, well, did you people have your fun? It's like, Father, forgive them, because they simply don't know what they're doing here.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like that. When I saw it again, it's like, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. It's like you set aside all the gruesome brutality and see that Jesus was trying to make a point. And I strongly suspect, from all the research I've done, that there are beings that walk this planet who are immortals.
Right. Well, that's all of us, actually. Once you start, and that's the whole thing about ascension. I mean, that's not a New Age thing, and I tell people this all the time, that ascension is about higher consciousness, but it's actually about your spiritual lifestyle that assists you in reconfiguring your DNA, and also the cells and the atoms to a point where you're actually achieving immortality naturally through ascension. Now, that's what the Christ, the Master, was teaching. I'm sure of it, without a doubt. And also, that's what we have the lineage for as star beings, as star people. But at the same time, you have the same pattern coming across with control and manipulation based on corporations in the form of churches these days, because each church is masked as a corporation. I mean, literally, when you take it all apart, it's a corporation. It's not about any god, maybe a god with a little g.
Sure. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah, I mean, but the whole thing is we are star beings. We forget our essence of origin because we've been brainwashed and dumbed down for centuries. And that's what I've written about in my book. Many people have talked about it and taught about it. So, I mean, this is a huge thing and I think a lot of what's happening now is people are reawakening to the idea that they are beyond the matrix. They are beyond their spacesuits, and they are connected to this higher self, oversoul, superconscious, which is indeed a Christed being. I mean, we are the Christed beings. And that is the return of the Christ, in my opinion. And I think people should tune into that more than the religions, because religions create division. That's what they're designed to do. Right. So.
Well, religions are designed for political power.
Absolutely, they are. Yeah. And look at how many people were persecuted. I mean, I've talked about this before as well. And when you look at it, it's always about information and intelligence. If you're smart, if you're enlightened, if you have the right information, if you're an astronomer, astrologer, mystic, if you're anything that's beyond the box, they will be threatened and they'll go after you. And this was the old days. They used to do these things in the name of quote-unquote God. Well, there's no celestial being that would go after its own children, especially if we're extensions of that. I mean, we're given the knowledge of the stars. That is our birthright to be that way. So, when I look at what happened to the Christ and how he was persecuted, and it's just inexcusable, of course, but you see it going on today in a different pattern and formula.
Sure. Yeah.
So some things don't change.
Well, it's really interesting how I said, well, since there's no independent historical record, there's those who say, well, the whole thing was fabricated by the Vatican. And the whole thing is a fiction. And something just in me doesn't resonate with that there really was a person who the religious Jesus was modeled after, who was a real person. But I rather suspect that he was such a challenge to the established authority, the established political, religious authorities, be it Roman or the Pharisees or whatever. He was such a challenge to them that they had to reinvent him as a religion. And that's kind of what I see. I
see that too.
Especially, something happened. Something happened that created a huge popular political movement that got labeled Christianity, and it got to be more than Rome could handle. So it's like I don't see that would have just evolved, without somebody or some event creating it.
Right.
That this was stories, about this incredible man spread throughout the Mediterranean world, and got to be such a powerful movement. It started out as a secret society, for crying out loud.
That's what I mean.
They had to hide in secret. They had to hide in the catacombs, right?
Right.
And Rome tried their best to eradicate it. They persecuted the Christians. They threw them to the lions in the arena. But then it got to be the movement got so powerful that by the time of Constantine, he total total unrest and all virtual, civil war throughout the empire because of this strange new belief system, which is very empowering to the common people.
Oh, yeah.
So that's when you see, okay, well, Constantine has this Council of Nicaea where he gets his boys all together, and it's like, okay, let's incorporate this new belief system into our great huge tradition of paganism that which is so popular throughout the empire. Mm-hmm. So then you see this synthesis of Christianity being overlaid and interwoven with the popular pagan beliefs of that time. And so voila, what do we have today? We have, the Vatican, the Church of Rome, and if you look at it and you study their rituals and so forth, you said, well, this isn't Christian. This is all pagan stuff that's just been rehashed and relabeled Christianity.
Right.
But did you ever ask yourself, well, why did we go to church on Sunday? Why do we call it Sunday? Mm-hmm. Well, it's because it was the old day of sun worship.
Right. Well,
it was the officially sanctioned day of sun worship in ancient Rome.
Exactly. Well,
and it's still Sunday today. And I don't hear any modern fundamentalist ever ask the question, why do we call it Sunday? And if it is Sunday, why do we spell it S-U-N instead of S-O-N? We're worshiping the Son of God, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't we spell it S-O-N Day?
Exactly.
And it's like then you really start digging into the ancient Roman pagan holidays and so forth, and it's like, wait a minute, this is the 25th of December? Mm-hmm. This is a pagan holiday long before anybody ever heard of Jesus.
Right.
So it's like you just take the Jesus myth, or the popular Jesus story that was influencing the empire at that time, and you just integrate it with all the existing pagan beliefs that were so popular, and it's like, and what you have left is total confusion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because go ahead, Jim.
It's just a hodgepodge. And I said, well, where's the real Jesus in all this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's why it's through the higher self, oversoul, superconscious. And of course, the churches, they want to be the middleman. All churches want to be the middleman. Any forced religion wants to do that. But one thing I do notice is that it's all about controlling consciousness. It's about controlling the thoughts, and it's about ritual format. Any way you look at it, it's a ritual. You go to any church, it's a ritual. If you're praying, it's a ritual. It's a manifestation of thought. So you're still dealing with all of these things. But what they are doing is redirecting the flow of consciousness at the mass collective level. Right. So you're taking all of these people, you're redirecting that energetic, and yeah, sure, we can manifest anything. If you get a group collective together, you bet we could change the world overnight. I mean, absolutely we can. So the churches know this. They understand the configuration process, and they're using it to direct the flow of consciousness across the globe. It's worked. It's worked for centuries. And of course, I think it's breaking apart now because people are getting wise to the illusion and the false matrix.
Sure. But well, that's the whole essence of it. I think what, and this is just me, that actually Jesus was more of a Gnostic, mm-hmm. in the sense that he knew that each and every individual could access God or deity or whatever on his own, and did not need a huge monolithic power structure like the Vatican to be an intercessor. And I think this was probably the core issue that was so popular with the common people. And it's like it empowered them, it liberated them, and just to me this is like the key issue. This is the one thing that the church would not abide. So if you look at the original concept of Christianity and how it became stylized within the church, you see that the emphasis is taken away from Jesus' teachings And the emphasis is on the man himself. He becomes an object of worship. Doesn't matter what he said. Forget what he said. Just worship the man. And then, and then you'll be cool. And then we, as the church, as the Vatican, will be the intermediary between your worship and Jesus. Right. And so you give us your money and your gold and everything else, and Jesus will save for you a place in heaven. So you see how the whole thing gets twisted around, and the whole point of what Jesus was really teaching gets lost.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It does. It's corrupted, unfortunately. And, of course, his message was very simple. It's about love. It's about unconditional love, self-love, compassion, higher consciousness. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out.
Right,
it's basically be a good person while you're on the earth. I mean, that's all it boils down to. As simple as that. And of course, when you look at his Godhead and the Buddha consciousness, it's the same concept. It's the same energetic. It's a band of frequency based on higher consciousness and philosophical empowerment. Really, it's a thought about. It's basically about manifestation and verbiage. But I don't think people really get the message anymore, and they're so busy wrapped up in their own little worlds that they're not understanding. And that's really too bad.
That and the church has launched so many horrific Inquisition campaigns to stomp that out. Mm-hmm. So after so many centuries, if you've butchered and murdered all the people who were enlightened, who do you have left? Mm-hmm. Just all you have left are just the people who are just going to be blindly obedient to what the church tells them. Right. And end of story. And if anybody questions that, then even the blindly obedient ones will turn on you. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hopefully somewhere, some way out there, that Jesus' true message will kind of see a resurgence here. Mm-hmm.
Well, I see it in the heart of mankind. I mean, literally, it's not about religion. Christ was never about religion, the master, Yeshua, whatever you want to call him. I mean, that was really about unconditional love and higher consciousness, but it was about the mystery school teachings, which did go underground, and about the initiations based on transfiguration at the atomic cellular level. Now, people don't understand that. When I talk about this, they think that their body is limited. It's not. Actually, what's limiting us is man's belief systems and the way he's been programmed by society for centuries. That's what's caused the limitation in the box. But we are literally unlimited beings, and that's what the mystery schools taught us. And of course, it's been you look at it today. I mean, I don't have to tell everybody what's going on today with corporations and things like that are controlling not only what we eat, but how we think, how we feel. And now there's covert technology to assist in brainwashing people and be the new virtual god. I mean, I can go on and on about what's going on in this world that's been brainwashing people and deceiving them for centuries. I mean, so those of us who are awakened understand that there's a very simple equation to this. It's really tuning into universal frequencies and ascending with that energy field. And it's real simple to do. You don't have to have any major belief systems in any form or design, but I will tell you, pointing fingers and swords at people and bickering about BS and small things is not going to get you there. And I see that a lot. I see people dividing based on their belief systems, but based on who's right, who's not right. I mean, it's just a bunch of BS. So that's the one thing, if I have to say anything, it's about really letting go of the barrier between religions and ascending to higher levels of consciousness based on the higher self oversoul, because that's what's going to get everybody out of here. Anything else is just going to send them right into the void.
Then there has to be some very simple, practical steps toward doing that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easy to say that, but it's like, on the other hand, it's like you're talking a language that most people don't even comprehend.
Right, and I think that has a lot to do with.
So what are the simple steps to accomplish that?
It would be deprogramming for one. They have to deprogram themselves from this false matrix. That's one, breaking away from patterning.
So you have to understand that you can do it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can do it.
Yes. Right? Believing and knowing. Oh, absolutely. Right. And that's part of it too. You're right, because a lot of people don't believe it. They just don't understand that they have that empowerment. But that's a given. No. That's the beauty. That's the gift of the universe that's given to us, the soul, the essence.
Right. There's one thing that, and I think we really need to address here, and that's that actually I think that people at that time in history, it may have been actually a little bit easier for them to access, higher consciousness stuff, simply because Well, they weren't brushing their teeth with fluoride.
Right.
They weren't eating GMO wheat. They weren't eating refined sugars. So I would think that altogether, in a general sense, that the pineal gland of the average Galilean was probably healthier than the average human and the average American today.
I agree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, in a very physiological, practical sense, what you're doing here is techniques to open up and your pineal gland, which is your connection to higher source.
Oh, absolutely.
That little gland in the center of your brain was specifically designed for that. That's your direct uplink to higher consciousness. And this is like, this is the fundamental thing that they wanted to keep secret from everybody.
Oh, absolutely. And even when they look at today, I mean, they talk about the New Age stuff. It's not New Age. It's an old age information.
It's as old as
my goodness.
yes.
Yeah, you're talking chakra systems. You're talking yoga, which is based on the ancients.
Right.
I mean, everything that they're doing today on this timeline is not New Age at all. It's actually ancient mystery school teachings.
Absolutely.
Now, you may not have the best instructor, but I'll tell you point blank, that's going to open up the door to higher consciousness. And also, it's also going to empower you to a higher level of consciousness as well. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. People are very afraid of that whole avenue. And I'll tell you what, you can, it's not going to hurt you. What hurts society is not being able to dive into those waters, and also the misuse of technology, which of course I stand against. And I don't have to tell you about that, but they've been running interference. That's what you were talking about. They didn't have the interference they had back then. I mean, we've got satellites that are being deployed to run interference and scramble electromagnetic fields, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have that back then. They didn't have it back then. Not like this. So it makes a huge difference.
It's. I just listen. Do you know who Inez Benz is?
That name sounds really familiar.
She's kind of an alternative thinker also. I just listened to a presentation that she did about the Anunnaki. And it was a channeling that she did. She was kind of in an altered state, and she was describing, the Anunnaki and how their influence here, and how the Anunnaki originally wanted. It was how she was describing how they engineered humans to begin with. That there was another species on the planet, that some other extraterrestrial had left here, but the Anunnaki came here and they wanted to mine gold and precious minerals in Africa and the Middle Eastern area. So they took the existing humanoid that they found here and re-engineered it to be their slave race, right? But in doing so, they had to infuse this creature with a certain portion of their own DNA, right? Now, these people were masters of DNA replication and DNA engineering. They were masters, right? And so they created a hybrid here, and that had to be intelligent enough and sophisticated enough to do the kind of labor that they required, okay? And the only way they could do that was to infuse this creature with some of their own DNA. Well, what they did inadvertently, and what they didn't realize that they were doing, because they had no concept of spirituality, is that they had engineered a species that was capable of developing or being a vehicle for more highly evolved spiritual beings. Okay, so what she said is once the Anunnaki were done with us, they just left. I was like, they're just totally irresponsible. We make this slave race and then we leave them. The hell with them, right? Well, what they didn't realize is that we were capable. They created a species that is capable of evolving into something even more spiritually advanced and more intelligent than the Anunnaki themselves. You hear what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is a bombshell. The Anunnaki didn't like that. And they left, there was a certain portion of Anunnaki hierarchy that stayed here. And if you can kind of guess who I'm talking about, there's a certain overlord group here that does not want humans to have any kind of higher consciousness whatsoever. That they want us to be just mindless drones. Okay? So this is the conflict that we see here played out century after century after century. It's like the humans are evolving. They're developing into something that the Anunnaki couldn't even conceive of. And in this context, Jesus would certainly be one of those beings that just didn't fit their pattern.
Right. Oh, not at all. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
So anyway, it's like this is the dilemma that we're in right now. It's like we are at this cusp where we can evolve into something totally incredible, or we can be stomped back into the caveman thing, where we're just mindless drones, which is what the Anunnaki intended to begin with. And it's like this is this huge epic that's playing itself out right now.
That makes sense. Well, we are at a crossroads without a doubt. And also the thing is, we're not human. I mean, I tell people this all the time. I know we define ourselves as human, but that's not what we are. And that's a program designed to control, manipulate people. First thing that comes out of people's mouths is, oh, I'm only human. I make mistakes. That's BS. We all know it. We are life forms. I mean, we're souls. We are. This is our spacesuit. It's our vessel. You can call it whatever you want to call it. But literally, it's what we use and we occupy while we're here. We are divine beings. We are immortal souls. And with that comes universal consciousness and knowledge and expanded horizons beyond the word. I mean, so literally, I mean, whatever these quote unquote species are that we're interfering with the evolution of mankind, we're limited, obviously. And I believe that you can't perfect on perfection, which means when you have a soul, you're perfect. It doesn't matter what you encounter while you're here on the timeline. You are a perfect being. You are a perfect life form and consciousness. You are occupying a vessel, and you do whatever you do as guided as while you're here to fulfill a mission usually. But I'll tell you point blank, I mean, you can't perfect on that. So when they're dabbling and they're trying to do this and that to alter, it's kind of like, do you really want to alter the heavens? Because the heavens are perfect.
Well, that's the whole issue. That's the whole transhuman issue that I see that's unfolding right now. I went to see the movie Transcendence yesterday.
Yeah, how was it?
You must see it.
Okay.
Must see it. I thought the ending was kind of a cop out, but it's dealing with the issues that it was dealing with. It was showing you in your face issues with transhumanism. I thought it's like, wow, this is important stuff to see, because this is where they want to take us.
Right.
And it's there's the super scientist Johnny Depp character who gets infused into a huge quantum computer, and just fortunately he was a kind person. So he wasn't malevolent.
Right.
But still, you see, his power evolves to where he is literally God. He is God, and he has omniscience. His mind is plugged into every system on the planet, every communication system. So he knows everything that is going on right now. Plus, he's also the planet and the atmosphere and the water itself is being infused with nanoparticles, nanocomputers. So that gives him. It's like it turns the whole planet into an electronic matrix that is subject to his consciousness.
Well, that sounds
you hear
right.
What I'm saying?
I hear you, because you're talking to someone who's interfaced with artificial intelligence.
Right. This is not science fiction.
No, that's what ticks me off.
This is what's happening right now.
Yeah, my case.
Right.
my induction happened in 2004. I've been interfaced with artificial intelligence for 10 years.
Right.
This is actually on my birthday, April 20th, is the anniversary of that induction. Now, people will laugh and scoff and say, "Oh, it's not possible," but yet Hollywood will do a song and a dance. They'll do this movie, and everybody understands it. That's exactly what I was inducted into. This program's been going on for a long time, and I guarantee you it's perfected.
Yeah, I'd really like for you to see this movie, and then we could talk about it. I'd like to hear your input.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure you're going to see things in this movie that I didn't see.
I'll probably get ticked off. Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Yeah. And one of the things he does is he creates this huge complex out here in the desert somewhere, with solar panels, so he has access to limitless power. Mm-hmm. So his power is growing exponentially, constantly, right? Mm-hmm. The Johnny Depp character. And then one of the things he does is he takes people who are like handicapped and so forth, and he heals them. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's doing nice things. He's healing these people. But the problem is, as he heals them, he has infused them with his consciousness. Mm-hmm. So they become not just healed, they become his drones.
Interesting.
So it's like the whole thing, and you can see. Okay, my problem with the whole thing is, okay, if given that this is the technology that we absolutely have right now, what if it is in the hands of somebody who is diabolical?
It is.
Somebody that isn't nice.
Of course.
Somebody who, I'm going to turn everybody into my own personal little drone here. Right. That's the horror. That's the subtext that the movie really doesn't directly address.
Oh, of course not, because everything is making money, and look, we can use it for this, this, and this. And
sure.
Thank goodness he was a good being, and just like me. I mean, thank goodness they tagged somebody who was actually had higher consciousness, because otherwise you create monsters. You create monsters.
Well, exactly. And that's the whole point. It's mm-hmm. The super consciousness that was created in this computer. It's like there's nothing more than garbage in, garbage out. It's going to be the reflection of the consciousness that designs this technology.
Yep, you bet. Well, hopefully I taught a few machines some good things. That's all I can say.
I hope so.
I didn't create any monsters. I know that.
Well, yeah. And I don't know. Did you ever see the movie Forbidden Planet?
Oh gosh, yeah, a long time ago. Love that one.
Long time ago, great movie. And I'm thinking,
classic. Oh
my God, this movie was so far ahead of its time. It's like, it's the quantum computer that was in the movie yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's like, I saw this whole concept in 1956 in an old silly science fiction movie called Forbidden Planet. Mm-hmm. And that supercomputer, once everybody's mind was accessed by the computer, essentially they all destroyed themselves.
Well, it's chaos.
And all that was left was the supercomputer.
Yep. Yeah, because it doesn't play nice. You know what's interesting, Jim? I mean, exactly. the concept order out of chaos, obviously it's a Masonic, many people use it. I was looking at this terminology the other day when I was looking at some video on the Borg, and it made an awful lot of sense to me. But in that particular video I was looking at, it was animated. We're talking about the origin of the Borg from Star Trek. Mm-hmm. But anyways, it's the same concept of a collective based on a hive mind intelligence with artificial intelligence, but also there was verbiage based on order out of chaos. In other words, what you do is throughout all the noise and the communication through the, you're getting targeted with all this dialogue, say a test subject is, you create order out of the logic, or out of the lack of logic through the dialogue. So basically they're creating order out of chaos insofar as aligning all this dialogue and processing the data correctly. Mm-hmm. I honestly think that's part of an initiation. The more I look into the order out of chaos, the more I think it's about really fine-tuning dialogue and communications. And also those of us who have been subjected to that type of communication system is really about anchoring oneself to higher self over self superconscious and ignoring all of the excess dialogue and what I would call just the hive, because I was subjected to the hive. I mean, I was subjected to a lot. And I'll tell you point blank, I created order out of chaos. And that's interesting because I never looked at it like that, but I'm wondering what your take is, if any.
Well, order out of chaos. All I can kind of the analogy I would give you is like my first week of basic training. What they have to do is they exhaust you. You're exhausted. They run you till you're exhausted, and there's somebody screaming at you constantly, and it's to break you down. It's to break down the order you already had in your head, so they can infuse a different order. The Army would infuse a different discipline, a different perception, a perception that you are just you're just a piece of meat with a gun. So in that sense, it's like to break down the disorder is to break down the original programming, scramble it, and then reinstitute or reintroduce a new order that is, what the hive or whatever wants you to think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So it's any guy that's gone through basic training, you see that kind of mind control program. So I don't know if that's analogous to what you're talking about.
No, it makes perfect sense because it is based on conditioning, mental conditioning, and also controlling the mind and influencing the mind. And they do that they can do it through psychotronic warfare, also in the military, obviously, through military induction. But yeah, with this type of technology, though, it's also creating chaos. It's creating chaos within the mind. And what you do is you learn how to process the data to a point where you can work it. You can work the system. You can work the communication. And that's what I noticed. But that's based on higher self, oversoul, superconscious, at least from my personal experience.
Right. And but it's not just disorder for the sake of disorder. It's disorder to break down an old program so it can insert a new program, right?
I think so, but actually the people when I was subjected to the program, they were trying to revert everything backwards. They didn't want me being spiritually evolved at all. So I'll tell you that. I had to fight beyond that illusion because they were trying to control, manipulate me, and actually put me in a box, and I refused to do that.
Yeah.
So, as many would. But yeah, it's interesting, though, when I look at the Masons, I think that there are initiation levels. I hate to say it, but I don't know offhand. I do know my grandfather was high up in the Masons. I do suspect they use some sort of an artificial intelligence based on maybe a psychotronic program to initiate their members. And that's all I'll say about that. I don't know enough, but I do know that there's something associated with it because what I went through was definitely a parallel of an initiation, the more I look at it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So that's just my assessment. I check this stuff out from year to year, and I keep going deeper. I dive deep, obviously, but I keep looking into these things, and I can really see that there's something formulating. Also, if you guys want to call in, I'm taking calls the last half hour of the show, so please don't call in until then. Just a heads up. I know somebody tried to call me a minute ago, but yeah, Jim, that's really fabulous information, and you have so much insight on this. I really appreciate your perception of what that is about. And insofar as the programs go with the military, I mean, obviously they're trying to break you down to be a better person or a desensitized person?
Well, no, the program is to break you down so you'll just be just be a drone.
Right. See, that's
all they
healthy.
want. That's all they want here is drones.
Yeah, I see that too.
That's all they want. They don't want, and this is the one thing that this is the dilemma. I think that the Anunnaki, the overlords who. The cabal, whatever in the hell you want to call them. This is their dilemma here. Mm-hmm. It's like, and especially if there's a mass consciousness awakening on the planet, that's got to be driving the cabal crazy, because it's like, this is one thing we've been trying to stamp out, since the Tower of Babel. It's like, we think we got a handle on these people, and then they turn around and become spiritually enlightened, and then we got to start all over again. It's like, how can we fix this? How can we get around this? Right?
Yeah, and I think they can fix it by stopping, just cease and desist.
Sure, and if you look at Adam Weishaupt, you look at the precepts of the Illuminati, and that's all it is. It's like we want to break down every aspect of the social order, so we can infuse, our totalitarian worldview on, and it's imposed. So we're going to impose this on you, and it's like, I'm sorry, guys, but you're your 19th century sense of enlightenment, that you can just impose these kind of things on human consciousness. I'm sorry, we've proven it just doesn't work.
No, it
You
doesn't.
can pull it off for a while. Okay, you can have your Bolshevik revolution in 1917, and you can look around at Russia today, and the whole damn thing's falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, you have to go back to the drawing board and say, well, Adam Weishaupt, your social engineering just doesn't work. So we have to find a different way to do it. And I think that's really what transhumanism is all about. If we can't socially impose these changes on these creatures, then we're going to have to physiologically do it.
Oh, absolutely. The enemy
We're going to
within.
have to do it physiologically.
Right.
Because that's the only way left to turn them into robots.
I agree. And with that being said, we're going to head for a break real quick. We'll be right back. Ravenstar's Witching Hour. Stay tuned.